Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a simple but powerful statement. Anger is energy. And the question is, what will you do with it? You see, too often we think of anger as something negative, something destructive, something we need to suppress. But what if I told you that anger can be the very catalyst for transformation in your life? What if I told you that the right kind of anger could propel you toward greatness? Many of us are comfortable with the way things are. We settle into routines, we endure discomfort, and we accept mediocrity. But let me tell you, change only happens when you're fed up. There has to come a point when you get so angry with your circumstances, your situation, or the state of your life that you can no longer tolerate it. That anger, if harnessed properly, can become the fuel you need to break free from complacency and step into the life you've always dreamed of. When you are truly angry, not the destructive kind of anger that causes harm to others or yourself, but the constructive kind, it gives you the courage to make decisions. It pushes you out of your comfort zone. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, face your fears, and challenge your limitations. Anger, when directed at the right target, can break the chains of self-doubt and ignite a fire of determination within you. But this kind of anger must be focused. You cannot waste it on people, situations, or things beyond your control. Your anger should be aimed squarely at the one thing you can change yourself. Ask yourself, are you angry enough to change your thinking? Are you angry enough to change your habits? Are you angry enough to stop accepting excuses and start demanding more from yourself? Because it is only when you are angry enough with the way things are that you will take the necessary steps to create the life you deserve. Too many people walk around angry about things that don't serve them. They're angry at their jobs, at their relationships, at their lack of progress, but they never take action. Their anger remains an emotion that drains them. You must be angry enough to turn that emotion into action. That's the difference. Anger without action is just frustration. But anger with purpose and direction will move mountains. Let your anger be the spark that fuels your personal revolution. Let it drive you to take bold steps, to change your mindset, to make the decisions that you've been putting off. Let it force you to stop living beneath your potential and start stepping into your greatness. There is no transformation without change. And sometimes it takes a little bit of anger to recognize that you are the one holding yourself back. It takes a little bit of anger to see that the life you've been tolerating is not the life you were created for. So let that anger push you. Let it give you the strength to take control of your future. You must be angry enough to change, be angry enough to break free from the chains of complacency. Be angry enough to stop making excuses and start making progress. Be angry enough to demand greatness from yourself. The time is now. Get angry, but get angry enough to do something about it. Anger is often viewed through a negative lens, something to be suppressed, avoided, or managed. It is frequently associated with destruction, conflict, and harm. But anger, at its core, is a raw, powerful energy that can be harnessed for constructive change. When we feel anger, it is a signal. An intense emotion that reveals a deep dissatisfaction with something in our lives. It's a response to perceived injustice, to unmet needs, or to a situation that feels beyond our control. But what if we could shift our understanding of anger, not as something to fear or hide from, but as an energy force that can drive us forward, push us toward transformation, and ignite the changes we've been putting off? Anger is energy, powerful, untamed, and visceral. It exists in every human being, bubbling under the surface, often unseen, but always present. It's a force that can either destroy or build, depending on how it's channeled. Think of anger as a spark. It has the potential to start a fire. But whether that fire is a raging inferno of chaos or a controlled burn that clears the way for growth depends entirely on how you manage the anger within you. In moments of anger, we feel something stirring inside us, a surge of energy that demands attention. It is a primal reaction that alerts us to something that needs to change. For many, the typical response to anger is either to react impulsively or to bury it, trying to push it down in the hope that it will dissipate. Both responses, however, are unproductive. The first leads to regretful actions that only escalate the situation, and the second leaves unresolved tension that can simmer and build into deeper frustration. But there's another way, one where you take control of that energy and direct it towards change. When you feel anger rising, take a moment to pause and reflect on what is truly fueling it. Is it a specific situation? a personal failure, a lack of progress in your life. Anger often arises when there is a mismatch between the reality we are experiencing and the reality we desire. It's a signal that something is wrong and needs to be addressed. This is where the power of anger lies. It's not merely a reaction, it's a form of insight. A clear indication that you are being called to make a change. Instead of allowing the anger to control you, ask yourself, what is this energy telling me? Is it showing me where I need to set boundaries? Is it highlighting a deeper dissatisfaction with my circumstances? Is it revealing something about my own behavior or choices that need to shift? When you begin to see anger as a tool for understanding, you can use that energy to fuel your growth. The energy of anger has the power to cut through complacency and inertia. Often we live our lives in a state of passivity, drifting along with whatever comes our way. We settle into habits, routines, and patterns that we know are not serving us, yet we lack the motivation to change. But anger shakes us awake. It's the energy that demands we take notice and do something. It can be the very thing that snaps us out of our comfort zones and pushes us to take bold, decisive action. Think of times in your life when you felt truly angry. Perhaps it was the frustration of feeling stuck in a job that wasn't fulfilling, or the anger that came from a relationship that drained your energy instead of nurturing it. Maybe it was the anger of watching others succeed while you felt left behind. These moments of intense emotion are often the turning points that mark the beginning of transformation. They show us in no uncertain terms that something needs to change. But anger, when left unchecked, can also lead to destruction. It can drive us to lash out, to burn bridges, or to make decisions in haste that we later regret. The key is to recognize the energy of anger for what it is, an intense force that can propel us forward if we direct it in the right direction. Anger can be the fuel for our personal revolution, but it must be carefully managed and channeled into purposeful action. One of the greatest challenges when we experience anger is learning to separate the emotion from the situation. It's easy to blame others or the world for the anger we feel, but in reality, anger often stems from within. It is a response to our unmet desires, our frustrations with where we are versus where we want to be. If we direct our anger outward, blaming others or external circumstances, we give away our power. The true strength comes when we turn inward and ask, what can I do to change this? The key to using anger effectively lies in your ability to harness its energy and channel it toward the pursuit of something greater. If we can reframe anger as an opportunity for action, we can begin to see it as a positive force in our lives. Think of it as fuel for a fire. When you have the right tools, you can control the flame. With the right focus, anger becomes the driving force that moves you from frustration to change, from stagnation to growth. When you feel anger, it's a call to action. It's not enough to simply acknowledge the feeling. You must use it as a stepping stone to move forward. Anger is a powerful motivator. It's the reason some people, when faced with adversity, decide that enough is enough and take steps to change their situation. It's the reason people who are tired of being stuck in a cycle of poverty, mediocrity, or failure finally choose to take a leap of faith. They get angry enough to say, I deserve more, and that anger becomes the force that propels them toward a better life. The energy of anger, if managed well, can help you break free from the chains of complacency. When we become angry enough with our current circumstances, we are more likely to take the bold steps required to make a change. It's easy to remain in a state of inertia, feeling overwhelmed by the status quo. But when you direct the energy of your anger toward positive change, you will begin to see opportunities where there were none before. Consider the journey of someone who has experienced deep frustration with their situation. Perhaps they were angry with their health, tired of feeling weak and exhausted. That anger, instead of being a cause of stress, can be channeled into a commitment to exercise, to eat better, to take care of themselves. The anger becomes a motivating force, a reminder that they are capable of more. It's the same with career, relationships, or personal growth. Anger can be the fire that burns away excuses and leaves room for the work that needs to be done. But what happens if we let anger control us instead of the other way around? The danger is that anger can lead to destructive actions, impulsive decisions, hurtful words, or harmful behavior. This is why it is so important to understand the energy behind the emotion. Anger in itself is not harmful, but it can lead to harm if it's not properly directed. If you allow your anger to make decisions for you, you may act out of haste or impulse, creating more problems than you solve. The energy of anger then must be harnessed with purpose. It must be used as fuel to drive you toward the changes you want to make. It must become a tool, not a weapon. If you can learn to redirect your anger away from destructive behaviors and toward focused action, you will find that this energy can serve you in ways you never imagined. When we use anger as energy, we begin to see it not as something to be feared, but as something to be respected. It is a signal that something needs to change, a reminder that we are capable of more. Anger, when channeled effectively, can be the catalyst for personal transformation. It has the power to move us from frustration to action, from complacency to greatness. It is a fire that burns within us all, and with the right focus, it can illuminate the path to a brighter future. So the next time you feel that surge of anger rising within you, don't dismiss it. Don't let it control you. Recognize it for what it is, a powerful, untapped energy that can push you towards your goals. Channel that energy with intention and watch how it transforms your life. Anger is an emotion that many people try to avoid or suppress, often because of its association with negativity or conflict. However, what if I told you that anger, when understood and channeled correctly, could become a powerful catalyst for change in your life? Far too often we allow anger to pass by unexamined, reacting in impulsive ways, allowing it to control us rather than using it to propel us forward. Yet anger holds within it a unique energy, an energy that can break the chains of complacency, ignite action, and lead us to make powerful decisions that we otherwise may never have made. In our lives, there comes a moment when we are faced with frustration, dissatisfaction, or the realization that something in our reality does not align with what we desire or deserve. In these moments, anger arises not as a meaningless, uncontrollable emotion, but as a messenger, a signal telling us that change is needed. It is the energy that sparks the realization that we are not willing to tolerate things as they are anymore. It is the emotional charge that can fuel us to do something about our dissatisfaction, instead of resigning ourselves to the status quo. Too often, people try to avoid or dismiss their anger, thinking it's something to be ashamed of. But the truth is, anger can be one of the most productive and transformative emotions if we choose to recognize it and use it for action. Anger can be the spark that leads to the fire of personal transformation. It can move us from apathy to action, from stagnation to progress. The key is to harness the energy of anger in a way that leads to positive, purposeful action. When we find ourselves angry, whether it's due to a challenging situation, a personal failure, or a deep dissatisfaction with our current reality, we have a choice. We can either allow that anger to consume us, leading to destructive behaviors, or we can take a moment to step back, assess the situation, and use the energy of that anger to fuel positive change. Anger can act as a force that awakens us from our complacency, pushing us to confront the things we've been avoiding. In fact, it can serve as a wake-up call, demanding that we no longer tolerate the situations that frustrate us. Anger, in this sense, becomes an emotional alarm system, alerting us to something in our lives that needs to change. It can push us out of our comfort zones, challenge our fears, and force us to take risks that we may have otherwise avoided. Without anger, we often stay passive, stagnant, and unwilling to confront the hard truths of our lives. But when anger comes to the surface, it brings with it an opportunity to shift our mindset and take meaningful action toward transformation. One of the most powerful aspects of anger as a catalyst for action is that it propels us into making decisions that we might not otherwise make. The discomfort of anger forces us to stop tolerating situations, relationships, or conditions that are unsatisfactory. We no longer have the patience for things that don't serve us. It's as if our very being rejects the idea of continuing to endure the status quo. It's an emotional rejection of what is, and in that rejection lies the seed of action. Anger challenges us to say, enough is enough, and it motivates us to act in ways that align with our higher goals and values. Consider a person who has been stuck in a job they hate for years. Every day they wake up with a feeling of dread and frustration. They feel trapped by the security of the paycheck, the fear of change, and the uncertainty of what's outside their current circumstances. But at some point, this frustration and dissatisfaction give way to anger, the anger of feeling unfulfilled, unseen, and stuck. This anger, rather than leading to bitterness or resentment, becomes the very thing that pushes them to make a decision. They become fed up with the status quo and realize that they are worthy of more than simply enduring a job they dislike. This anger becomes the spark that pushes them to take action, whether that's updating their resume, networking for a new opportunity, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship. The anger shifts their mindset from one of resignation to one of action, and it propels them into a new phase of their career. The same can happen in relationships, health, or any area of life where dissatisfaction exists. Anger acts as the catalyst that moves us from inaction to intentional behavior. It gives us the strength to set boundaries, the courage to speak our truth, and the determination to take steps toward a better life. This is the power of anger. It has the ability to bring us face to face with the things we've been avoiding, and it forces us to deal with them head on. However, for anger to serve as a catalyst for positive change, we must direct it toward action and avoid allowing it to turn inward or outward in destructive ways. Anger that is not managed properly can lead to impulsive decisions, reckless behavior, and broken relationships. It's easy to let anger spill over into blame, accusations, or retaliation, but this does not lead to change. Instead, it often causes more harm and creates further obstacles. To truly benefit from anger as a catalyst, we must channel that energy in a productive direction. This is where self-reflection becomes crucial. When anger arises, it's important to take a step back and ask ourselves, why am I angry? What is this anger telling me? What am I dissatisfied with? Is this anger directed at a person or situation outside of me, or is it a signal that I need to change something within myself? Understanding the source of our anger allows us to use it effectively. Anger that is directed inward can lead to self-blame, guilt, or frustration, while anger that is focused outward can lead to conflict and harm. But when anger is acknowledged as a tool for growth, it becomes a force that drives us to make meaningful change. The key is to make sure that anger doesn't control us, but rather that we control it. We must consciously choose to direct it toward constructive actions that move us toward growth, healing, and improvement. Anger, when used properly, can lead to clarity. It can clear away the fog of indecision, break down the walls of fear, and provide the energy needed to take bold, decisive action. One of the most profound aspects of using anger as a catalyst for action is that it gives us the power to break free from patterns of passivity and stagnation. Many people go through life simply reacting to circumstances, waiting for change to happen to them. But anger forces us to take responsibility for our own lives. It empowers us to stop waiting for permission, stop hoping for the perfect moment, and stop looking for others to change. It demands that we take charge of our own transformation. Imagine someone who has struggled for years with their health. They may have tried various diets, exercise routines, or strategies, but nothing seems to stick. They may feel defeated or hopeless, but then comes a moment when they are so frustrated, so angry at themselves for letting their health slip, that they are finally ready to make a real change. This anger, the frustration of knowing they've been neglecting their own well-being, becomes the motivator that propels them to take action. It's the energy they need to overhaul their lifestyle, to commit to a new routine, and to make the tough choices that will lead to long-term improvement. Without that anger, they may have continued to drift in the same unhealthy patterns. But anger has the power to break through that inertia and create the momentum necessary for change. Anger is not something to be feared, but something to be respected. It's a signal that we are dissatisfied, that we are unwilling to accept things as they are, and that we are ready for transformation. If we can learn to channel our anger into productive action, it becomes a powerful force that drives us toward our goals. It empowers us to stop waiting for life to change on its own and to take control of our destiny. Anger is a catalyst, a motivator, and a force for change. When we recognize this and learn to harness it, we open the door to personal growth, transformation, and a life of intentional action. Anger is one of the most powerful emotions we can experience, and yet it is often perceived negatively. It can cause us to act impulsively, say things we don't mean, and make decisions we later regret. But what if anger, when channeled correctly, could be a driving force for self-improvement and personal growth? Anger, like any emotion, is not inherently good or bad. It is what we do with it that determines its impact on our lives. Instead of letting anger consume us or lead us down destructive paths, we can learn to harness its energy and transform it into a catalyst for positive change. By channeling our anger into self-improvement, we can use it as a tool for personal development, motivation, and growth. The first step in channeling anger into self-improvement is understanding that anger is not an enemy. Too often we are told to suppress or control our anger, but this approach can lead to emotional buildup and resentment. Anger, when left unchecked, can fester and cause harm, both to ourselves and to others. However, anger also has a purpose. It is a signal, a warning that something in our lives is not aligned with our values, desires, or needs. When we feel angry, it is an opportunity to examine what has triggered this emotion and to understand what needs to change in our lives. for many people, anger arises when they feel disrespected, overlooked, or mistreated. It can also arise when we are dissatisfied with ourselves, our circumstances, or our progress. Anger is often a reflection of our frustration with the way things are, and that frustration can serve as the fuel we need to take action. Instead of letting anger control us or push us into unhealthy reactions, we can use it as a signal to take stock of our lives and to identify areas where we need to make changes. This requires self-awareness, the ability to step back from the emotion, and the willingness to ask ourselves some hard questions. Why are we angry? What is this anger telling us about our current situation? What can we learn from this emotion? Once we have acknowledged and understood the source of our anger, the next step is to shift our focus from the external triggers to internal growth. Anger often arises from external sources, situations, people, or events that challenge our sense of peace or control. But the truth is, we cannot always control external factors. What we can control, however, is how we respond to them. Instead of allowing anger to be a force of destruction, we can choose to let it become a force of creation. We can use it as the energy that drives us to take action, to break through barriers, and to improve ourselves. One of the most powerful ways to channel anger into self-improvement is by using it as a motivator. When we are angry, we are emotionally charged, and that charge can be harnessed for positive action. Instead of lashing out at others or indulging in self-pity, we can redirect that energy toward achieving our goals. Anger can serve as a powerful motivator when we use it to propel ourselves forward rather than letting it hold us back. For example, if we are angry about being stuck in a job we dislike, that anger can be the catalyst for us to start looking for new opportunities, to acquire new skills, or to explore a new career path. If we are angry about our lack of progress in personal development, that anger can push us to take the necessary steps to improve ourselves, whether that means reading more, learning new habits, or seeking help from a mentor. Anger can also be a tool for setting boundaries and asserting our needs. Often we feel angry when we allow others to take advantage of us, disrespect us, or overstep our boundaries. This anger can be an indication that it is time to stand up for ourselves, to draw the line, and to take control of our lives. By channeling this anger into self-respect and self-assertion, we can begin to make positive changes in our relationships, our careers, and our personal lives. Anger becomes a reminder that we are worthy of respect, that our needs matter, and that we have the power to set limits and create the space we need to thrive. Another powerful way to use anger for self-improvement is by using it to fuel self-reflection and self-awareness. Anger often arises when we feel that something is out of alignment with our values or goals. By sitting with that anger and reflecting on its cause, we can gain deeper insight into ourselves and our desires. Anger can reveal the areas of our lives that need attention, whether it's our health, our relationships, our career, or our personal growth. When we are angry, it can be a wake-up call, urging us to take a closer look at where we are and where we want to go. Instead of letting anger drive us into conflict or despair, we can use it as an opportunity to reassess our priorities, reevaluate our choices, and make the necessary adjustments to move forward. Furthermore, anger can be used as a tool for releasing negative emotions and beliefs that are holding us back. Often we hold on to anger because we are holding on to past hurt, resentment, or guilt. These unresolved emotions can weigh us down, preventing us from moving forward and achieving our potential. By using anger as a catalyst for letting go of the past, we can free ourselves from the emotional baggage that keeps us stuck. Instead of carrying around old wounds, we can choose to channel our anger into healing and forgiveness. This process requires emotional maturity, but it is essential for growth. When we release negative emotions, we create space for positive change and self-improvement. As we continue to channel anger into self-improvement, it is important to recognize the role of discipline and action in this process. Anger, when left unchecked, can lead to impulsive decisions, rash actions, and regret. However, when we pair anger with discipline, we can use it in a way that is focused and intentional. Discipline allows us to direct our energy in a way that is aligned with our long-term goals. It ensures that we are not simply reacting to anger, but using it strategically to improve ourselves. Whether it's committing to a new workout routine, making a financial plan, or taking steps toward personal growth, discipline is key to ensuring that our anger leads to lasting change. In addition to discipline, patience is also necessary. Change does not happen overnight, and self-improvement is a lifelong journey. Anger can provide the initial spark, but it is sustained effort and commitment that will bring about the desired results. By being patient with ourselves and understanding that progress takes time, we can avoid the trap of frustration and discouragement. It is important to recognize that self-improvement is not a linear process. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt, but by channeling our anger into a long-term vision for personal growth, we can stay on track and continue to move forward. Finally, it is important to remember that channeling anger into self-improvement is not about denying or repressing the emotion. Rather, it is about acknowledging it, understanding its source, and using it as a force for change. Anger is not something to be ashamed of or feared. It is an emotion that can be transformed into something positive if we choose to do so. By channeling our anger into self-improvement, we can turn frustration into motivation, dissatisfaction into action, and pain into progress. Anger, when properly directed, becomes a powerful tool for personal transformation and growth. Anger is a powerful, often overwhelming emotion. It arises in response to a perceived injustice, frustration, or sense of powerlessness. For many, anger can be an uncontrollable force that emerges suddenly and intensely, leaving them feeling overwhelmed and in some cases paralyzed by their own emotions. While anger in itself is not inherently negative, it becomes problematic when it is not expressed in a productive way. Anger without action is frustration, a festering, stagnant emotion that drains energy without producing results. When anger is left to smolder without being channeled into meaningful action, it creates an internal environment of dissatisfaction, resentment, and helplessness. The true power of anger lies in its ability to propel us forward and inspire change, but only if it is paired with action. When anger arises, it often signals that something is wrong. It's a reaction to external circumstances that don't align with our expectations, desires, or values. Whether it's a sense of injustice, a personal setback, or frustration with the way things are going, anger highlights areas of our lives that need attention. It's an emotional alarm system alerting us that something requires our focus. However, when anger is not acted upon, it remains as just an emotion, an energy that dissipates without accomplishing anything. It's like a car with the engine running but no direction, spinning its wheels but getting nowhere. Anger without action traps us in a cycle of frustration, leading us to feel stuck, helpless, or defeated. The first step in overcoming the frustration that comes from unacted anger is recognizing that anger itself is a response to something. It's a reaction to an unmet need, an unaddressed problem, or a perceived injustice. If we can take a moment to pause and reflect on the source of our anger, we can gain valuable insight into what it is that needs to change. Anger, when harnessed correctly, can be a catalyst for transformation. But without action, it becomes nothing more than a raw, negative emotion that lingers in our minds and bodies, creating stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. To overcome the trap of frustration, we must understand that anger is a signal, not a sentence. Once we recognize that anger is an emotional signal, we must then ask ourselves what we are going to do about it. Anger can either be a constructive force that motivates us to take action, or it can be a destructive force that keeps us stuck in a cycle of frustration. The difference lies in how we choose to respond to it. When we allow anger to exist without doing anything with it, we reinforce feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness. We become victims of our emotions, unable to break free from the cycle of frustration. On the other hand, when we use anger as a prompt to take action, we empower ourselves to make change. Action is the antidote to frustration. It is the bridge between the emotion of anger and the outcome of change. Action is what transforms anger from a mere feeling into a productive force. Without action, anger remains confined to our minds and bodies, where it can fester and build up, causing stress, anxiety, and physical discomfort. When we take action, however, we redirect the energy of anger into something tangible. We begin to channel the emotional energy into practical steps that bring us closer to our goals. Action requires focus, decision-making, and a willingness to move beyond the emotional intensity of anger. It demands that we take responsibility for our feelings and turn them into something constructive. Taking action, especially in the face of anger, can be incredibly challenging. Anger often clouds our judgment and makes it difficult to think clearly. We may feel a sense of urgency to act, but we may also feel a sense of paralysis, unsure of what to do or how to proceed. In these moments, it's important to remember that action doesn't always have to be grand or immediate. Sometimes the best course of action is simply to take the first step, no matter how small. The key is to break the inertia of frustration by moving forward, even if the path is not entirely clear. The longer we allow anger to simmer without doing something with it, the more entrenched we become in frustration. But with every action, no matter how small, we begin to dissolve that frustration and move closer to a solution. Another reason anger without action leads to frustration is because it is often rooted in an unmet expectation. We get angry when things don't go the way we want them to, when people fail to meet our expectations, or when life doesn't unfold as we envisioned. This sense of dissatisfaction is at the core of much of our frustration. However, frustration only grows when we focus on the things that are beyond our control. We cannot change the past, and we cannot always control the actions of others. But we can control how we respond to those things. When we take action, we reclaim our power and stop waiting for external circumstances to change. We stop being passive victims of our situations and start actively working toward the changes we desire. Taking action allows us to shift our focus from what we cannot control to what we can control: our choices, our decisions, and our behavior. In many cases, we are afraid to take action when we feel angry because we fear making the wrong move or making things worse. Anger can cloud our judgment and make us feel impulsive, leading us to act in ways that we might later regret. This fear of making a mistake can keep us from acting at all. But inaction often leads to more frustration, and more frustration can lead to greater anger. The key is to take action despite our fears and doubts. Perfection is not the goal, progress is. Action, even imperfect action, moves us forward. It clears the mental and emotional clutter, making space for clarity and understanding. Taking action gives us the opportunity to learn from our mistakes, to course correct, and to keep moving toward our goals. Another important aspect of taking action in the face of anger is the ability to stay focused on the solution rather than dwelling on the problem. Anger often arises from a sense of helplessness or injustice, and when we focus solely on the problem, we can easily become consumed by it. However, when we take action, we shift our focus from the problem itself to the potential solutions. This shift in focus helps us to gain perspective and find ways to overcome the challenges that triggered our anger. Action allows us to move out of the mindset of frustration and into a mindset of possibility. When we act, we stop being victims of our circumstances and become creators of our own solutions. Ultimately, anger without action is not just frustration, it is wasted potential. Anger is an emotional resource, a source of energy that, when directed properly, can fuel positive change in our lives. However, when anger is left unaddressed and unchanneled, it drains us of that energy, leaving us stuck in a cycle of frustration and stagnation. The key to transforming anger into something productive is to take action. When we take action, we give our anger a purpose. We channel it into something meaningful, whether that's addressing a problem, pursuing a goal, or making a change in our lives. Action is the antidote to frustration. It is the key that unlocks the potential within our anger and turns it into a force for transformation and growth. Anger, when met with action, can be the spark that ignites positive change, propelling us forward and helping us create the life we desire. Anger is often viewed as a negative emotion, something to be avoided or suppressed. It's seen as an emotional flaw, something that can only lead to conflict, destruction, and regret. People are taught to fear anger, to push it down, and to avoid it at all costs. But anger, when properly understood and channeled, can be a pathway to greatness. Far from being something to run from, anger can be the very force that drives us to push through obstacles, challenge the status quo, and achieve what we otherwise would not have thought possible. Anger, when transformed into purposeful action, becomes a powerful tool for growth, achievement, and personal development. It serves as a reminder that there is something inside us that yearns for change, something that demands improvement, something that is restless and unwilling to settle for mediocrity. When we embrace this anger, harness it, and direct it toward positive action, we open the door to greatness. The first thing to recognize about anger is that it is a natural and inevitable part of life. It is a part of being human to feel anger, especially when things don't go as planned, when we face injustice, or when we are confronted with obstacles that seem insurmountable. Anger is not the problem. How we respond to it is what matters. It is an emotional signal that tells us something is wrong, something needs to change, or that we are being held back in some way. Anger, at its core, is a response to dissatisfaction with our current circumstances. It reveals the gap between where we are and where we want to be. This gap, this dissatisfaction, is the fuel that can propel us toward greatness if we are willing to take the necessary steps to harness that energy. Anger can be a powerful motivator. When we feel frustrated or enraged by a situation, it can ignite a fire within us, urging us to take action. It has the potential to push us out of our comfort zones and challenge us to think differently. For many, anger has been the catalyst for transformative change. Think of the social movements and revolutions throughout history. Many of them were born out of anger at injustice. Think of the great innovators and entrepreneurs who were driven by anger over inefficiencies or limitations in their industries. It is anger that often prompts people to challenge the status quo, to dream bigger, to refuse to accept things as they are. Anger can be the spark that ignites a fire of purpose, ambition, and creativity. It forces us to ask ourselves, why settle for this? Why should this be acceptable? And in that question lies the potential for greatness. The problem comes when anger is not directed toward action. When anger is left to fester and is not transformed into something productive, it can turn toxic. Unchecked anger can lead to bitterness, resentment, and negativity. It can cloud our judgment and cause us to make decisions we later regret. In this state, anger consumes us rather than empowering us. It becomes a destructive force instead of a motivating one. But when we can move beyond the immediate emotional response to anger and focus on channeling it into action, that's when the magic happens. When we ask ourselves, what can I do about this, instead of simply, why am I angry, we begin to use anger as a powerful tool for change. Anger becomes the fire that fuels our efforts to create something better, something greater than what currently exists. One of the reasons anger can lead to greatness is because it often stems from a desire to overcome adversity. It is a reaction to obstacles that block our progress or hold us back. When we are angry about something, it is usually because we see an obstacle in our way, whether that obstacle is within ourselves, in the people around us, or in the systems and structures we operate within. This frustration is a sign that we are not content with the current state of affairs, that we believe we deserve more, and that we are not willing to accept limitations. Anger, in this sense, becomes the fuel for overcoming adversity. It compels us to act with greater determination to push through the challenges that stand between us and our goals. It serves as a reminder that greatness is not achieved by playing it safe or accepting the status quo, but by confronting challenges head on and pushing through them with relentless resolve. Anger can also serve as a mirror, reflecting back to us the areas of our lives that need attention and improvement. When we become angry, it is often because something has touched a nerve, something we care deeply about. That anger reveals a part of us that is invested, that wants to see change, that wants to do better. It's easy to feel angry at external forces, at a boss, a colleague, a friend, or society at large. But if we take a step back, we can use that anger as an opportunity to reflect on ourselves and our own behavior. What is it that we are not doing that is contributing to the situation? What can we change within ourselves to make a difference? Anger has the potential to bring our own shortcomings into sharp focus, and by recognizing these areas, we can begin the work of personal growth. Greatness requires self-awareness and a willingness to change, and anger can be the catalyst that starts that process. In many ways, anger is an invitation to rise above our current circumstances. It urges us to stop accepting mediocrity and to start striving for something greater. Anger is an indication that there is more within us, more potential that has yet to be realized. It is a signal that we are capable of more, that we have the power to create the change we seek. Greatness is not achieved by waiting for things to get better on their own. It's achieved by actively pursuing a higher standard and refusing to settle for less. When we channel our anger into purposeful action, we begin to rise above the limitations imposed by our environment, our circumstances, and our own doubts. We stop accepting what is and start creating what can be. Another key reason anger can be a pathway to greatness is that it can push us to take risks. Anger often arises when we feel trapped, limited, or stifled in some way. It is a call to break free from the chains that bind us, to take a leap of faith, and to step into the unknown. Greatness requires risk, whether that's taking the risk to pursue a new career, to stand up for what we believe in, or to make a significant change in our lives. Anger provides the fuel to overcome the fear that often holds us back from taking these risks. It pushes us to move beyond our comfort zones, to take the bold steps that lead to transformation. Without anger, we might remain complacent, accepting the life we have rather than the life we could create. Anger is the spark that challenges us to aim higher, to dream bigger, and to take the steps necessary to make those dreams a reality. However, the power of anger lies not only in its ability to drive us toward greatness, but also in its ability to clarify our purpose. When we are angry, we are usually faced with a clear sense of what we believe is wrong or unjust. This clarity of purpose is invaluable. It serves as a compass guiding us toward our true goals and aspirations. Anger can strip away distractions and superficial desires, revealing what truly matters to us. It helps us understand what we are willing to fight for and what we are willing to sacrifice. In this sense, anger acts as a purifier, clearing away the noise and allowing us to focus on what is truly important. When we embrace our anger, we uncover a deep well of passion and determination that can propel us toward our greatest achievements. Anger, when understood and embraced, can be one of the most powerful forces for change in our lives. It is not something to fear or repress, but something to acknowledge, channel, and transform. Anger can propel us toward greatness by motivating us to take action, by challenging us to rise above our circumstances, and by driving us to break through obstacles that stand in our way. It clarifies our purpose, reveals areas for growth, and inspires us to take risks that lead to transformation. Greatness is not achieved by suppressing anger or avoiding it, but by using it as a catalyst for personal growth, achievement, and success. When we learn to harness anger, we unlock its full potential and open the door to a future far greater than what we currently imagine.